Morning, everyone. Hope you can all hear me okay. We'll just give it a couple of minutes before we get started. So just hang tight for a second. Hi again, everyone. I think we'll just go on and get started. So thanks again for joining today. My name's Patrick, I'm from Associations Forum, I'm the events officer here. Just to let you know that we will be recording this session so you guys can come and view it later. I do want to thank Clade Solutions for sponsoring this webinar and providing us some insights on how we can adapt and move forward with technology in the future. But before that, before I hand over to Thai, I just wanted to give a bit of housekeeping. So your webcam isn't necessary, so just remain on mute as well if you're not speaking. If you have any questions, they're going to be answered throughout or at the end of the session. So just feel free to type in the chat box and we'll get back to it as soon as we can. But other than that, I guess we'll start the session and I'll hand over to you, Thai.
Awesome, thanks Patrick, appreciate that. And thank you to Associations Forum for allowing us to present today as well. And hopefully everyone is well and safe at the moment that's attending the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope everyone down in Melbourne is warm and in their houses at the moment. You guys will be out free soon. And today's session, guys, I think the first thing I would like to note as well, we came up this session before the outbreak down in Melbourne. So I guess it's not just a post-COVID world, but I guess it's the world now that's past the peak of the pandemic and adapting to change and navigating some challenges. I also want to keep today's session quite candid as well. So I want to go through the structure and the outtakes and a bit of a story as well, guys. I'm just going to next slide. I'm not going to bore you guys to death with too many slides today as well. Just a few from myself, and then we'll get to so quite a few webinars with Associations Forum as of late over the last 12 months, but I'm the head of growth over at Clade. My goal is, or what I've been specializing in, is digital transformation and helping out a lot of organizations, especially non-for-profits and associations with big digital transformation. But I'm not the main speaker today. The main speaker that we have that has given up his time is Craig Horton, who's the head of IT over at RANZCR, which is the Royal Australian New Zealand College of Radiologists. Craig, I think your resume speaks for itself, mate. 25 years experience helping organizations bridging the gap between IT and people. I think you've, mate, do you want to share a little words instead of me talking about you, mate? Maybe do a little bit of a spill on yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thanks everyone for joining today, and I reiterate what Ty said around keeping safe. I hope you're all well out there. Look, I've been at the college since 2014. I was brought on at the college to create the IT department, an 85-year-old medical college that used IT but didn't have really a strategy or a department to actually take that to the next level. And that's predominantly what my role has been in translating the business strategy into an IT strategy. In fact, 3 waves, we're in our 3rd wave now, in renewing all of our technology products across our staff and for our members. The RANZCR is a member organisation. We have around 4,500 members across Australia, New Zealand and Singapore. We have around 900 trainees across 2 faculties currently in the 5-year programs. We have a varied amount of different services, from policy and advocacy right through to events, which COVID has affected us as well in that space, and ongoing training of fellows. We have around about 90 full-time staff at the college. We have, and in fact, we have a very high volunteer workforce. The highly active voluntary operational office-bearing positions, we have over 1,000, probably 1,100 that work in an operational capacity for the college. So when you look at that, and not dissimilar to other associations and medical colleges, we need volunteers to make sure that we can actually run our business.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. And guys, just to paint a picture on the format today, I'll be going through a few slides, and then Craig and I will be doing a bit more of a fireside chat and interview process there, where we'll be asking a bunch of questions and giving a bit of feedback and give you guys an opportunity to ask some questions as well. Awesome. So yeah, some key takeaways for today's session. What we want you guys to be able to walk away with is an understanding of who we are as Clade and how we can help you guys in the future. Technology adoption during peak COVID, technology adoption now, that the peak is hopefully done and dusted. How RANZCR have dealt with a dynamic change, and then I guess the whole overarching thing, it's an opportunity for you guys to hear from an industry expert as well as ask questions. I don't think it's often that we get someone like Craig Horton who's given us his time today to speak on this topic and also answer the questions there. So we'd love you guys to make the most of this session and having someone like Craig in this session there. Us, a little bit about us. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Clade, I'm sure you guys would have seen us. If not, you would have seen my face around at these exhibitions and these expos, these events, and looking forward to seeing everyone throughout the year of events with Associations Forum. We are Microsoft partners. We do focus on the Microsoft stack of technologies. We do have a product that's focused around associations, and hence why we're so heavily aligned with the Associations Forums and doing these sessions. That product is called CAMS. It's our association management solution. It's based off Microsoft, and a few of our key customers are on the bottom there. They're all membership-based driven organizations, and we're doing these sessions not just to pitch CAMS, or we actually don't really use these sessions to pitch CAMS, but we use these sessions to try to enlighten as many people as possible on digital transformation and what it is. We understand, and for us, technology products, they all work, they all do the right things. It does come down to the people and the information that you guys have as well. So our goal in running these sessions with Associations Forum is to gear you guys up with as much information as possible for you guys to make the right decisions there. But I have to do a little spiel on CAMS. Just have to do it just based on getting your attention here. But as I mentioned earlier, we have built a member management solution that's powered off Microsoft Dynamics 365. So if you guys are already using the Microsoft stack of technologies like Office, Excel, Outlook, please give CAMS a look over. If you guys are looking to change your AMS, ours would integrate natively with all your Microsoft stack technologies there, and that's sort of our point of difference in the industry. Cool. That was my little plug. How did we get to today's topic? And I wanted to share, I guess, some information on how we got here today and why we picked this topic and why we thought it was quite relevant. If you guys don't know, us as an organization, we run these association leaders lunches, and our most recent one was held in Canberra in April. We've actually had to hold off on them for the last year and a half due to COVID, but they're back and rearing to go at the moment. We actually teamed up with Radiologists. I'm sure you guys have seen Rob and Rowan everywhere with those orange t-shirts. In this luncheon, we had the Australian Food and Grocery Council, we had the Customer-Owned Banking Association, we had the Australian Council for International Development, we had the Canberra Business Chamber, we had the Australian College of Nursing, as well as Radiologists, of course, and ourselves. And a few of these topics came out. Our goal is to run these sessions at least once a quarter, if not bi-monthly as well. So if you guys are interested in attending these lunches, please feel free to reach out to myself after this webinar. and put your name down on the list. But from these sessions, what we do write up is an association report. So we call it the Under the Spotlight. We have about 3 articles out there at the moment as well. So I'm happy to share it if you guys want to register and sign up to get these reports. From the themes that we gathered from that session in April, it was quite interesting. Topics have changed, especially after a year and a half without being interacted with. And the goals through the topics there was responding to change that's happening now. How do associations continue to demonstrate the value that they provide post-pandemic? For me, that was one of the most interesting ones, because I think most associations' member engagement went through the roof during this pandemic and during the peak of it, especially when your members started turning to you for help and for answers there. The goal then was, what happens next? Now that we have all this engagement, how do we continue nurturing that with technology? And the wake-up call to how important innovation was. I think a lot of discussion around cybersecurity and the need to get to the cloud and the need to be able to work from home. I think we all took that for granted a little bit. Challenges raised by the prominence of technology, and then also finally the topic of the future of association events. So the reason why we got here today was due to that topic there. So what happens next now? Like, we went through this pandemic, we went through the peak of it. It was crazy. I think technology was a major tip of the tongue there. So what happens next? So hence why we brought Craig on to tell us a story about RANZCR, as well as what their plan is next as well. So awesome. So that was as much as my slides. And Craig, I'm going to challenge you today, mate. As we go through this fireside chat, I want you to understand you're going to be wearing 2 hats. The audience today are not all as large as RANZCR, or some of them might be larger than RANZCR. I also want you to wear the hat of the technology expert, the CIO, the head of IT, and help everyone else listening today as well put together a plan and strategy in place based on some questions. So just to let everyone know, we do have some questions, some guidelines. I'm definitely going to go rogue, and I definitely will go off track. So Craig, I'm here to test you, mate. Let's kick it off. Let's kick it off, mate.
Sure.
Should we take off the slides, or?
Yeah, take the slides off. That's fine.
Take the slides off, eh? Okay. How do I stop sharing? Pause sharing. Stop sharing. Sorry. Easy, mate. So you've sort of given us a spill on RANZCR. Is there anything else we should know about the college itself?
Well, look, in terms of, and we'll be specific around where COVID has affected our organisation and really the journey we've had to go on. And it's not going to be dissimilar to what other people and people in the audience today have experienced. And how did it affect RANZCR? Well, the same as everyone else. Events were cancelled. We had to figure out how we were going to recoup funds from travel, from conference venues, from everything that had been arranged. But in a way, it affected us even more in terms of how we train our cohort, and our trainees do all of their training actually in the hospitals and in practice. Our examinations, where exam centres were being closed, we had to obtain special privileges to work around where shutdown was. And it really affected the business in that regard there. Internally, it had effects where the offices were closed. Ranska took a very conservative approach, and at the end of February, we actually moved everyone out of the office. Yep. And I'll talk a little bit about how we survived inside that. And how could we use the current technologies to leverage on top of that to keep our organisation actually working? Yep.
What was the first step? Like, I think even for us as an IT consultancy, our first for us was a bit crazy. We didn't know, unexpected. Everything was unexpected. This was the first time anyone's dabbled in this one. Did you guys sit down at a table and go, okay, cool, this is the situation, cool, calm and collected, or was it just manic?
Yeah, well, look, we actually have a business continuity plan for the organisation in the event of an emergency. And in effect, this pandemic really did instantiate that. With the strategies I've put in place and the technology and being in cloud and for over 6.5 years, made it actually very, very easy. We could connect to all of our platforms out of the office. And in fact, we'd actually established 3 odd years ago teleworking policies so people could work in a hybrid manner. We obtained more laptops. We got as many as we could. Nearly 50% of our staff didn't actually work out of the office. So building all of those in a 4-day period, and on the 5th day for the remaining people, really shut the office, and that was it. It was interesting in that regard, where people didn't know what COVID was. We were all in that similar situation, didn't go anywhere, and really the news provided us with as much information as we could. We actually created a COVID task force. Fortunately, we've got some brilliant clinicians who would be able to provide advice on what we would do. And really the main part was keeping our staff safe and keeping our members safe, especially where COVID patients were actually going to hospitals where they worked. We provided a lot of advice to our members on how to manage that, from the PPE right through to how they can continue and get advice from the college as a member body.
Can I bring it back, man? I'm keen to bring it back, Craig. Can you hear me now? Sorry, man. I sort of keen to bring it back a little bit. That emergency plan that you guys had in place, how did you guys come about that? Was that created before you started a RANZCR, or was that something that you initiated?
Well, it was. There's two components to it. Most people think DR planning or BCP plans are an IT responsibility, and in fact, that's not correct at all. Business continuity is actually owned by the board, and where something financial or reputational, if the building is not tenable, you have to put in plans in place to make sure that the financials, that the systems, that the protection of both staff and the safety of them, and also the data and IP that we hold is in fact intact. How do we operate if our building wasn't we couldn't occupy that in the city, which is exactly what happened. We were just in a very fortunate position that all of the work that's been done, all of our systems are actually accessible, bar a few very old legacy platforms, out of the office. And that was very advantageous for us. The plans were already in place.
Yeah. Okay. No, I like that, man. I can imagine the COVID task force wasn't part of that plan. How did you guys come across that strategy?
That was actually the board setting that up. So it was driven by, and most of the board were on that, with other people contributing to it. That they talked across many items of keeping the organisation operational. How would we manage to run our exams? How can we keep our trainees and members safe in the workplace? And we quickly created position papers and advice that was published out to all of our members and whoever else wanted to use them, for that matter, for public safety.
No, I like that. No, I've never heard of a COVID task force before. I think that's quite interesting there, and I think people should adopt that for emergencies instead of not just COVID task force, but just be an emergency task force moving forward. But okay, how's RANZCR now? Are you guys surviving? Are you guys thriving?
Yeah, look, really, I guess it goes back to the formation of IT and creating a strategy around the digital focus of moving RANZCR from a very manual, paper-based organisation into the digital age. When I first got there was cupboards and cupboards full of member documentation. By moving to cloud and changing the way that we can access them and the way that we worked, has been a big part of how we've actually survived through COVID. We do have quite a high expenditure on our travel, with flying our clinicians into Sydney, predominantly in the council meetings, special interest groups, right up to the board. With those savings coming on into those areas, we didn't actually have to invest a significant amount more into technology to carry on our business actually operating. And in fact, when we look at it, when we did go to home, there was actually no downtime by moving from office to home because of the teleworking, or more modern workspace, I guess it's called nowadays, to allow people to work from there. What that actually did productivity-wise, our actual productivity went up. It's strange in saying that, where companies were struggling, and I heard many stories of that people couldn't get to systems. Our productivity actually went up.
Why do you think that, man?
Pardon?
Why do you think that was the case? Yeah.
Well, look, in terms of that around it, I think it was part of the resilience that we've shown over the last year and a quarter, or year and a half, in what we needed to do and everyone stood up. You know, it was great. Where people needed to put their hand up and help out, everyone did, and that's very much a cultural aspect of what we've been building across Ranska for many years. There's everyone put in longer hours, but we did what we needed to do and reprioritize many areas inside our digital strategy and business strategy to make sure that we could remain operational.
When did you guys start thinking about the members through this process? It's good you thought about the staff and you got all that done, but how are your members engaging with RANZCR through this?
Exactly the same time. Because our members are vitally important to our operational running of Ranska. How can we support them more under the stresses that they were actually starting to come under due to COVID? Now, our radiologists, clinical radiologists, don't generally spend time with patients, but they are in areas where in the hospital that patients were coming through. Our radiation oncologists are working with cancer patients. So how can they do that in a safe way for both themselves and the patient and for patient care? So there was a very large influence on how we support our members that way and provide them the right information as it was coming in from expertise from right around the globe.
Did the way they the way they engage with RANZCR change a little bit? Did that change your digital strategy? Did it knock you out?
No, is the short answer. The digital strategy hasn't changed, and it was reprioritized. We had to change around the focus of what systems we need to put in place. And sure, that had its challenges to put some key projects on hold and start other ones up, where I still think we were ahead where we could actually obtain outsourced resource to and suppliers to be able to provide us digital technologies and get ahead while other companies were actually still struggling and actually just still trying to actually connect to their platforms and even get email for some companies I've heard of. So no, I think that comes down to how we structured in the process, where our digital strategy is very much aligned to our overall membership strategy and Ranska strategy overall. So, yeah.
Okay. Most associations are not the size of RANZCR. From what we deal with at Clade quite a bit there. Putting together a digital strategy could probably be less priority than most other aspects there. So now that most associations understand that digital transformation and technology is so important, especially during these times here, what kind of advice could you give? What kind of advice could you give a smaller association on what they start by putting a strategy together?
Yeah, look, we might be a larger organisation or association to the people that are on the call today. It's no different. It's create a strategy. Ranska didn't have an IT strategy, but they had IT, and they had a number of legacy platforms that were fit for purpose in some regards, but a lot didn't actually work properly. Most organisations will have a business strategy. How does IT align to that to enhance that strategy and actually get there? Most business strategies now have to incorporate technology. That's the way that we operate, and we will continue to do that in the future. Strategies don't have to be a complex piece of paper. It doesn't have to be a 200-page document. You can actually put a piece of a strategy together on one page. You just need to know how to collect that information. And really that page, which I did, is actually a dog-eared piece of paper that I still carry around and pull out every now and then from 7 years ago. So, and moving to the cloud is a big part of that. Not having customized platforms, but buying software as a service or platform as a service through good providers is key. Having chosen to move to cloud, then the opportunities to implement dynamic CRM. Ranska was, I think, a number of years ahead of Clade on building CAM. So Ranska doesn't use CAM as a product. So sorry, Thai, but that's where we're at. But
sorry, let me correct you, mate. Not yet.
And it really from there, then it enabled us to be able to help our members create what they're asking for. Our New Zealand members wanted to pay in New Zealand dollars. We have a New Zealand entity with a New Zealand company, bank accounts, etc. So we're a true multinational, multi-entity organization, and we've had to build finance platforms to actually cater for that multi-currency and truly that way, not just doing currency conversion. It's the same with our marketing area and that as well. On how we actually communicate with our different members and segment them right down to it. Dynamic CRM has allowed us to do that. Finance has allowed us to be able to manage all of that for the different types of products and services. Whereas before, it was very much a challenge to add a new service. It generally meant more people and getting bums on seats, essentially. The decision making was, dare I say it, from a governance perspective, probably quite feudal, not in a federated way, where there was, when I joined RANZCR, there were actually 5 different teleconferencing platforms. They were all removed. We use some key platforms now with Microsoft Teams. We use GoToMeeting as well. And, those sorts of things now have been widely accepted with all of our interactions with our members, and that through those platforms. And it's great that we've gone so quickly, and it's been an opportunity over a pandemic to implement technologies and still get the best out of our members and being able to engage them on the way. I think, we're doing a digital meeting, online meeting now. And everyone's, I have to say, has got used to that. I would love to have it in a face-to-face environment, and someday soon it will happen. But it's given us the opportunity to actually do both, and that's a great thing.
Mate, I'm going to switch it to the members and what's next in a little bit, but I want some key outtakes for the audience watching today as well, Craig. So if we were going to go create a strategy, and if you're going to list on your priorities, the top 5 priorities, where do you start? What's the first thing you should look at before putting into the strategy? Would it be the people, the members, the staff? What do you think it is?
Yeah, well, look, there's things that intertwine and dovetail into each other. The culture of the organisation and how the organisation is able to absorb change for everyone, and everyone has heard this before, is difficult for most people to undertake. And over the years I've been at Ranska, the culture has changed. We couldn't change a thing before. So without being a big knee-jerk reaction, change is an everyday occurrence. My problem now is how much change can we actually put onto the business from the digital strategy, and how fast can we go? So managing that cultural change aspect is vitally key in supporting not only digital strategy, but the overall business strategy. I think in terms of smaller organizations, and if you don't have a technology department, find a good consulting firm to help you build that strategy, understand your business model, and really then you can take that back to your executive or board of directors to be able to allow them to make informed decisions to fund technology enhancements and enablement for that matter. But the strategy I've put in place in choosing the Microsoft stack, the CRM environment, Dynamics, finance and operations, we've done very small amounts of actual development, and we've minimized that. So it's part of the strategy and principles we operate by. I have employed a number of business analysts that can configure the CRM platforms and build what we need without actually having to go into extensive development. That type of development is expensive and generally has a shelf life, whereas being able to configure our platforms and then have the business units own those platforms is key. They become the experts, so you don't necessarily have to have a large, expensive IT team.
Thanks for a little plug there, mate. But it right now, and you touched on a point that isn't part of our list to have a conversation about at the moment, but I'm sure every association out there is getting bombarded by different technology companies approaching with new products, new ways to engage members. Any tips for them to see through the noise that's being made at the moment?
Well,
and not get too caught up in, I must have that now. All my members are wanting this now. I need to do this now, and then buying technology that they might not need in the future, might not even last.
Yeah, look, it still comes back to your strategy and how you prioritize that, and that the whole of organisation agrees to what the priorities are to address. Is it the member-facing websites or portals that they need to go into? Is it the events that you need to run to bring in revenue? Is it the training that you provide through your organisation, or the policy and advocacy that you do to support your members? And really, if there'll be probably a good long list of those. What are your top 5? Yeah. And where does, from a technology perspective, where do you need technology to support that? I think that's the key part. But one of the big parts in that what everyone needs to understand, and through COVID, is that cyber activities and criminal activities is exponentially increased significantly. We see it in the news a lot with state players and the Australian government at loggerheads, and that doesn't help our situation where we're needing to enable more technology. Coming back to consulting firms, is that one of the key questions and measurements I have a look at is that security is really the key area before you engage with anyone. How secure is your data going to be? In fact, where is your data going to be? How can that organisation or the software that they provide ensure that my data is safe? Do you have data sovereignty areas? We don't actually engage with organisations unless very, very specific, and can't actually have that with inside Australia or New Zealand. We actually have data sovereignty around some of our information, so our data is protected, and we can tell that to our members.
Yeah, cybersecurity, you're opening up a whole can of worms in there, mate. That's a whole session itself there. But getting, like I mentioned earlier, I'll shift the focus to the members. So, quick answer on this one: did your member engagement increase through the pandemic?
Yes, in terms of from an operational perspective, absolutely. We had to engage more. We had to make sure that we could provide answers to our members who are some of them are really out there in the frontline area for where COVID cases were coming into hospitals. That did increase from our perspective, but the burden on our members to provide that inside our voluntary workforce was challenging for them as well. That they increased the amount of work that they did for the college, and they can be commended for that. That was very, very difficult and stressful, from not only from their own position that they held as a clinician, but for the college and everyone, including myself, from a personal perspective of how it's affected us all.
How are you tracking that member engagement at the moment?
Yeah, look, we've had a member engagement strategy in place for over 8 years now, and really it came down to a really key question we looked at years ago, and that was, if our organisation or someone, our governing bodies, were to deregulate what we do, why would a member stay at RANZCR? What do we do, and what can we improve on, and how can we internally service ourselves better to externally service the members a lot better? And that member engagement's allowed us to create a scoring system, and for all of the interactions we actually grade that. A lot of companies are now doing that to see where we can focus on, but it works as a bifocal area, not only on what our members are doing, but it also looks at from the perspective of succession planning. We know if there's certain individuals that have come through from a trainee or trainee committees when they're training and into the special interest groups or examination areas when they become a fellow of the college, what are the key parts that we can, as indicators, to say, well, that individual is primed for actually being a council member in and over a period of years. If they stick with that, how do we encourage that behaviour to continue? But then in the future, that person that could actually end up on our board of directors. So we're looking at it from that perspective as well, to make sure that succession planning across our voluntary workforce is sustainable.
I got a question coming from Michelle. We're going to keep the questions till the end, but I like this question at the moment as well, and I have some insights on this too, Michelle. But the question was, do you have, at RANZCR, do you guys have a member self-serve portal? And if so, how have you driven adoption?
Yeah, look, we do have a portal. We have a portal that hangs off our our CRM. And previous to that, there was a very, very simple portal with a very simple payment gateway for payment of member subscriptions. That was not fit for purpose. Now what we're doing is looking at how we can connect all of our platforms in, from CPD to training, to our webcast library, which has over 4,000 hours of member videos and conference information with inside it. How do we provide key areas and services that are member only, and then provide it that to also the public as well? There's been a really good uptake on that there. It's changed the way that we can actually interact, but also allow us to enable more technologies, which we've just rolled out another 2 or 3 different types of products in that to the member base through the member portal. I think it's a key area.
It definitely is a key area, and I have an example. We just went live with the Australian Drilling Industry Association, and had a bit of catch up with them. That they've never had a self-servicing portal previously, and they had a lot of members call the admin staff up and ask them to do tasks such as registering for an event or signing up for membership, and they have to now, instead of just doing it on the phone, and I know it's very hard in terms of customer service to say, no, I'm not going to do it for you, can you go use our portal? It's just an educational piece, because it makes their lives easier as well as yours, and it's just that hard hurdle to get across. But hearing ADIA tell us that they're telling members now, go to the portal, because then it automates things. It automates the engagement tracking, it automates the invoices, it starts the complete automation, saves you guys time, so you guys can service your members a bit better. So there is an education piece that has to go through, and Craig also mentioned like adding more services to the portal, giving them a reason to come back. We've recently, and I think you guys do it at RANZCR quite well there, Craig, but we've recently integrated Vimeo, and about to look at integrating YouTube into our portal, because you can have all the resources you want in there, and if they click a button and they go somewhere else, I can assure you they get stuck there. I'm sure everyone's been caught in a black hole on YouTube watching different kinds of videos. You have to focus on that member experience and creating that single platform for them to be on, and then have to leave. And also having regular updates in terms of services and member engagement and communications there as well.
Yeah, look, one of the examples from a member perspective where they do sit inside examination committees or special interest groups or even the council, we use document management areas with inside SharePoint and have our members connect into those to share and work on key documents. We're moving that across and upping our strategy with inside Microsoft Teams. We'll connect that back in through our portal. So the engagement in those office bearing positions is actually going to be all done through Teams. And some people have done that well. We held off a little bit on moving to Teams. We wanted to see a result of what that was in the marketplace. I think that's matured well enough for us now to say, well, where can and how can we have some of our expert clinicians actually engage with us and share their knowledge across our membership, where we can't fly them in. Maybe they're rural, but can contribute 1 or 2 hours a week into a special interest group. And then that's really been enabled and only been enabled through technology. Teams is part of 365. It's every association right now who's on that can use that and probably are using that right now as well. So, I think we've got to take advantage of that.
What's mate, just getting back on topic as well, like we've established the pandemic, technology became a key. I think most associations, especially watching this as well, you guys must have put together a strategy, and strategy is key in terms of picking right technology for yourself. Your members have peaked engagement. Now we're all set. Everyone's working from home, or everyone's working in the right environments. Members know to engage the association now. What's next, mate? Is there a line of technology that you predict that could be the next for membership and associations?
Look, that's a really good question. For the last 6.5, nearly 7 years, my department has been focusing on building. We don't particularly like having to do keeping the lights on, so we've turned off legacy platforms and built new technologies. Really, the next wave is to say, how can we get the return on investment out of them? Where are the apps that we can actually hook into these the main business platforms and enhance what the members can do. Maybe it's some smaller apps that are add-ins. Maybe it's something or other along the line of connectivity so people can interact easier. It's a difficult one to really put from a member perspective, but one of the big areas of focus is saying, well, how do you get these really good apps and allow internally for us to actually service ourselves even better? If there's service excellence internally, naturally, that's going to reflect externally to our members. And sure, I think we can do it better, much better. And that's, it's not to say that we do a bad job now. We just want to be able to measure that internally on how well I guess you would call service level agreements around different services. Yeah. How can we measure them so we can make it easier for a member to interact with the college? And if we get to that point, then we're actually able to measure that as well through our member engagement, through where in today's society a service level agreement is more a service level agreement of now. I need it now. And I heard an interesting stat the other day that the younger generation and that coming through, if they're on their phones and getting apps, it used to be 8 seconds. If they couldn't or didn't like it, they would look for something or other else. In fact, that's even dropped over the last year to about 2 seconds. If it's not interesting enough, then they'll move on quickly. That's not necessarily the case with our members, but we have to engage with them in the correct way so that they are on board from the first interaction that we've given out, whether it's an email blast or whether it's something or other as a service that we've provided.
Yeah, I'm with you. I heard another saying the other day. It was the most important currency in this day and age is attention span. And that's the most valuable currency out there at the moment. So, and you're right, mate. If I take 4 to 6 minutes, 46 seconds, and I have it, it's gone. And I think a good example, and for us, one of our clients, Aluka, they recently during the pandemic they launched a CPD dashboard with us, and we gamified it, and we made sure that we made that CPD process a really engaging process for them to want to come back over and over again to their portal, to their member self-servicing portal, as well as watching the resources on there. And they actually did, and another education piece for you, Michelle, as well, they actually did a webinar on the new CPD dashboard. So it is education and constantly using the technology that you've decided on to stay front and center and attention to the members that you guys have as well at the moment, and constantly feeding them new services that you're doing and new additions to the membership that they're getting as well. Just so that's why they keep coming back. People love the rewards and loyalty things. Cool. A few minutes left, Craig. I'm keen to see, and also this is actually quite an interesting one, the digital skill sets. And I've seen a lot of our customers actually now start looking at hiring digital employees. I think before it was just membership and events, finance, and then now everyone's starting to look at hiring this tech team. Not everyone can afford a Craig Horton. Not everyone can afford the team that you have over there at RANZCR. But what's the one skill set you think someone must have or an association must consider hiring?
Yeah, that's
it's a loaded question, but yeah.
It is a very loaded question. It's hard. Digital skills can actually be taught. So really around what I look for when I'm hiring people is their aptitude and attitude, and really from an intelligence level. What we do is unique to our organization, and that takes 3 to 6 months, and it's not dissimilar to any organization out there. What we have is products and services take time to understand, and take time to understand what our members need from that and need from us. So from a digital skill set, really it's around, for me, is really around the 365 area. And can they work within the office in a hybrid mode? Can they work in a video conferencing age? We put in a digital telephone system in that last year. Are they used to that? I think it goes beyond digital skill sets, to be honest. If a small organization is engaged with a good consulting firm or a managed services company, then you really need to push them to get more out of the technologies you've got and use their digital skills to allow you to make informed decisions. If you've got a few people on board, well, look, the digital skills they've got is, really what more can they enhance from what you've already put in place? And I'm making that on the assumption that a lot of organizations now have already moved to a cloud platform, whether it's Google or whether it's Microsoft. If it is Microsoft, one key area is actually reach out to Microsoft. We did, and they've helped guide and contact or put us in contact with some digital consulting firms that have provided some great advice. I could have researched it myself, but I'm time poor. A lot of people are. That they came up with the answers a lot quicker. I was very happy with that. And investing into those areas for very short engagements is not about just using one digital agency, it's using many. For the organizations that have got areas and digital skill sets, and especially from an IT perspective, business analysts are key.
Yep.
They understand and really are the conduit between what the business needs are and understanding the business problem. Mm-hmm. If that's clearly articulated, the conversations I have with my business is not about what the technology can do, it's about mm-hmm. what business problem we're actually solving.
Yeah.
Everyone can research and Google and find digital applications and solutions. It's choosing the right one to actually solve a business problem that's key, that you need within your staff skill sets. The digital skill sets can actually be taught. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, it did, mate. 100% right on a decode that the Craig Horton language there. But I think you're right there. A BA, a business analyst, a technical business analyst is a key skill set someone must have. And I guess from us as well, what I've seen a lot of is, and I think if you guys aren't ready to hire someone, it is, and Craig, you're right there, that you can Google and YouTube a bunch of stuff, but you have to nominate a power user internally. So if you're looking to upskill, I actually see quite a bit, and a lot of our clients actually turning to us to try to upskill some of their staff members by doing training or doing courses. And actually I do have an association that comes in our office once a week and does a bit of training one-on-one with one of our functional consultants, Janice. And they upskill, but they've committed to that. They've committed to invest some time into that one individual to learn technology and learn IT. And instead of doing a course, they've come to a consultancy like ourselves to pick up those skill sets that are relevant to their, to their technology stack there. But they have to make that commitment there.
Yeah.
Awesome, mate. So another question in terms of, so during this pandemic, I know we're talking a lot about associations and stuff like that, but did you guys get inspired by other industries and seeing what challenges they faced?
Well, look, I think you need to look at it in a very broad sense of what other industries are doing. And from RANZCR's perspective, we don't compete with anyone. Mm-hmm. You've got to use the term of co-opetition mm-hmm. and think of it in that way. Who can you go to and leverage their ideas in different industry sectors or in different medical colleges where discussions have had to say, well, we don't compete, but how do you manage CPD? How do you manage your training programs? How do you manage your member engagement? And, associations can do this more and share these ideas across different industry sectors. And the way that I generally look at it is that if you pick up a customer relationship or member management platform, which is generally on a CRM or a finance platform, if you actually fundamentally pick up the basic areas of how those two systems work, it's not dissimilar. Mm-hmm. I've always said at RANZCR, we're unique by definition, but the way that our business runs and the finance platforms is no different than any other business. They'll be bigger or smaller, but accounting standards are accounting standards across Australia and New Zealand. Mm-hmm. Customer management is no different in what type of base information that you keep. There might be some specific key data fields in that you do need, but fundamentally it's the same. A product and a service in every organization is a product and a service. Mm-hmm. Simplification across really what people are doing is from an inspirational perspective is not a hard thing to do. Mm-hmm. We complicate things because of us being in that space of being unique. Mm-hmm. And I don't really take that on and say, well, we have to be complex because we are unique. It's actually easier to simplify things. The complexity comes with the way that we interact and the individuals within the organization and the personalities and the cultural aspect of it, but not from a business perspective. There's a lot of great companies in that out there. And, we're 85, 87 years old, somewhere in that vicinity. And I deemed it as really a startup approach to say, if we were to do things completely brand new, how would we do it? And that there has been a basis of the thought leadership across the executive team and trying to change the culture across the organization. We're a not-for-profit. It was thought when I first got there that we're almost operated like a charity, but we're not. We're a not-for-profit, and we employ and engage or adapt and adopt processes that work really, really well from a very large corporate to a very, very small organization. And if we think along those lines, then I think really that's where it allows you to have a strategy, but be flexible with inside it. A rigid strategy is not going to work. If you've got to, what the end state's going to be, how we're exactly going to be there will be prescribed when you actually go in and create those programs of work and the scope and that you need to do with inside those areas. But saying this is the only way that we're going down in a rigid strategy doesn't work in a lot of businesses nowadays.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. Sometimes associations and some of our clients maybe just box themselves in this non-for-profit space a little bit. And even I drew quite a bit of inspiration in developing CAMS a little bit more through this pandemic by understanding. I had this weird awakening that I'm a member of everything. I'm a member of Netflix and Spotify and all these applications, and I'm actually a member of a bunch of other institutes as well. And I was inspired to think, okay, why do I keep going back to these apps? And I think that really inspired me as well. And Netflix would always recommend a few shows to me. So if you guys a tip out to the associations, if your platform isn't collecting the right data to tell you what your members want to see or what your members are interacting with, then you guys I think it's definitely a good time to start looking into a system that does provide you that information. Because that's why I keep, and you can ask yourselves that too, why do you keep going back to certain apps? Is it because they're showcasing products that are relevant to yourself right now? I know sometimes it could seem a bit freaky and how do they know I was thinking about that? But it is from data collection. So if you guys don't have that data, you guys won't be able to sort of predict what your members are doing next. And it's a shame because, as I mentioned earlier, your engagement is so high at the moment. You should be trying to leverage as much of that data as possible there. Anything to add on that, Craig, in terms of data and how you guys looking to utilize that in the next few months to keep engagement up?
Yeah, well, the key part to that is you can collect as much data as you want, but a lot of it will probably end up being useless anyway. So you need to be able to collect the data that solves a business problem. And if you can articulate the business problem well, that feeds into many things. And I think that's a key part that I'd like for people to take away as well today is that, well, if you can articulate to the consulting firm that you've got to come in for the strategy, or to your executive team, or if you're part of the executive team, or to your board of directors of what business problem that you need to solve, you're a long way down the track of being able to create what your strategy is going to be. If you're just purely putting a digital strategy together or IT strategy, and it reads very, very technical in that regard, well, then that's not really a strategy. That's more of saying, well, you're just putting a technical plan together of what's going on. The IT strategy or digital strategy needs to be able to be read from the board right down to each individual staff member of what business problem you're actually solving and how we're going to get there. Where are we now to where we're going to be in the future? And if you've got that, which I guarantee if I was to sit down with individuals and that are on the call today and ask them some simple questions, you could all articulate what your business problems are. The next step is then how do you prioritize those, and how do you have your valuable funding to be put into those focus areas and being supported by the board or being invested into, and then looking at what that return on investment is actually going to give you. And I think that's a key thing for everyone to understand. When you've got that plan, It might be adjusted, but the end point of what you're trying to do will actually be achieved, and you really need to become quite persistent and determined to get there, which I think everyone will be.
Yeah, man. And okay, any don'ts, any don't do's, anything to look at? Any things you fall backwards?
Look, there's always lots of don'ts. You always learn by making mistakes. It's just trying to make the big ones, and you can fall into a lot of traps. But I think in relation back to pre-pandemic and the way that we're operating is challenging as a pandemic has been globally, individually for our organisation and everyone. I've looked at it as an opportunity to say, well, we've actually fast-tracked some decisions that had floundered or sat in the background around implementing digital and new technologies, and I've taken that on board. Sure, it's doubled my team's workload, but what's going to happen is we're going to end up a better organisation when the pandemic is over, and that there won't go away. How we work in a hybrid perspective, it won't go away. We've looked at and said before, we can't hire people outside of Sydney because we need them sitting in the office. Well, we've got 12 people in 3 different states in Australia that are working for us in the same positions that were in Sydney. So we've proven ourselves wrong. And that won't change. It's opened up opportunities to hire people and skill sets from other states that wouldn't come to New South Wales. So that's a great opportunity and allowing us to continue to move forward. How much we've actually employed more people, but on a ratio basis, we're actually providing more services, which is great. And those efficiencies that we've gained by taking this on as an opportunity are going to, like I said before, is really going to continue to allow Ranska to grow overall and remain as a sustainable organisation into the future.
No, I like that, mate. So would you say there's no right or wrong way at the moment, and every association has its own way as long as they look after their people first?
Well, there's always a wrong way. Yeah. I'm not going to say that, but this is where good decisions around who you partner with, what business problems you're going to solve, is the strategy a good one or not? And there are consulting companies out there that can actually help and that to make sure that your IT strategy does align to the business strategy. And I know of a number of very good organizations that do this and have proven that good strategies do allow businesses to continue to succeed.
Okay. No, we're almost wrapping up. I just want to throw it to the floor a bit. There's only a few minutes left, but see if anyone has any questions for you, Craig.
Sure.
I don't know how you guys want to do questions. Can everyone unmute themselves and ask a question? Or do they have to type it in the box? You can unmute. Donna, I see you on the call as well. Maybe you might have a question. I don't think they can unmute. If not, mate, any last words for the audience, Craig?
Oh no, look, that's it. Look, there's a lot of information to absorb. Hopefully, you have got something or other out of today. It might sound easy to create a strategy and that around it, but be persistent at creating that, and really go for it. It's the technology side of it now is really quite exciting to transform whole of organizations, and I feel what I've managed to achieve at RANZCR has been there and will continue to do it. It's really put RANZCR at the forefront of what a lot of medical colleges and that are doing, not only on how we run our exams, our digital exams. We run medical imaging exams, which is very, very technically very, very difficult. We could never do that outside of Sydney. We've run 2 series of exams now in 11 locations across three countries, in a remote and in an examination centres. So, that by implementing that was a very, very difficult few months to do it, but it's actually put us in a position where we can continue to educate and and qualify radiologists. So it's great that we've been able to do it.
No, awesome, man. I'm glad to hear RANZCR's going so well. Looking forward to you guys continue growing and us staying in touch. Are you okay? The audience, if you guys want to reach out to Craig on LinkedIn, he's always open for a good chat, as you guys can tell. So feel free to reach him, bug him on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to myself as well. If you guys have any questions on Microsoft or technology or digital transformation, we are one of the good consultancies out there that Craig was mentioning that can help you. My email is, I'll send it in the chat bot as well. But thank you so much for coming and joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
All good.